Once upon a time, in a quiet village of Zaza, there lived a young, beautiful girl named Ruth. Unlike other girls, Ruth was not just an ordinary girl. She was a special child. From the day she was born, strange things happened. The rain stopped falling, the sky turned bright red, and thunder clapped, but there was no lightning. The village elders called her Child of the Light. Some said she had 7 destinies hidden like stones inside her heart. She lived in a small mud house with her old grandmother, Mama Dorothy, near the edge of the forest. They had no money, no father, no mother. But they had love, courage, and a small farm behind the house. Ruth was just 19, but she could do what most full-grown men in the village could not. She would wake up early, pick her bow and arrow, and disappear into the bush like a whisper. Hours later, she would return with a fat rabbit, a wild bird, or a basket of herbs. The children loved her, the women blessed her, and the men admired her. She was a miracle with a smile. Whenever someone was sick in Zaza, they didn't go to the shrine first. They ran to Ruth. She would grind leaves, mix herbs, and whisper soft words. And before night came, the sick would rise again. She has a healing hand, they said. She's not just a girl, she's a gift from the gods. But Ruth had a dream. She didn't want to stay in the village forever. She wanted to go to the city, to learn more, to become a real doctor, and to give Mama Dorothy a better life. "Grandma," she would say with a laugh, "one day I'll buy you a house that touches the sky." But not everyone was happy about Ruth's destiny. One evening, under the big Iroko tree, some elders gathered and began to talk. "This girl is growing too fast," one elder said. "Too much light attracts jealous eyes," another whispered. From a distance, someone else was watching too. A pair of dark eyes hiding in the shadows, burning with envy. It was Uncle Peter, Ruth's late father's younger brother. He stood behind the trees, fists clenched, lips shaking. "How is she loved more than me?" he murmured. "After all I've done, after all I took, now she wants to shine?" As the moon rose that night, Ruth sat outside with her grandmother. She looked at the stars and smiled. But in the darkness, beyond the farm, something evil had begun to move. A secret was waking, and danger was creeping close, very close. The next morning in Zaza, the birds sang and the sun smiled again. Ruth was already in the farm, cutting grass with her short knife. Her skin glowed with sweat, her hand strong like a man's, but her heart kind and soft like a mother's hug. Not far away, Uncle Peter stood by the village square, laughing with the elders. He wore a big smile and held a walking stick. "Ruth is a good girl," he said sweetly. "May the gods bless her," he added with a fake grin. But deep in his heart, Peter was boiling with envy. He watched Ruth grow, watched her shine, and every time someone praised her, his stomach twisted like a snake. Years ago, Peter had done something very bad, something dark, something only he and the gods knew. Ruth's parents once owned the richest piece of land in Zaza. It had yams, palm trees, and a hidden stream with clean water. But one night, many years ago, fire swallowed their house. People said it was lightning, but it was Peter. He had burned the house. He poisoned their drinking water.
He wanted the land for himself. And when the village asked questions, Peter cried the loudest. He wiped his fake tears and said, "They were my blood. I will take care of Ruth." And so he took everything, the land, the trees, the money. But now Ruth was rising like a shadow over him. One evening, while cleaning the old storage room, Ruth found an old leather bag. It was dusty and smelled like palm oil. Inside, she found papers, strange papers. She sat down on the cold floor and read. Her father's name was there, his signature too, but something was wrong. Each paper had another signature below it, Peter's name. But the writing was shaky, different, fake. Ruth's heart began to race. Her hands trembled. She rushed into the house and showed the papers to Mama Dorothy. "Grandma, look at this. These were Papa's lands. Why is Uncle Peter's name here?" Dorothy looked at the papers and froze. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "My child, your father trusted his brother too much." Ruth's chest rose and fell. She stared at the door, her eyes turned sharp like a lioness. "I know what to do." But Grandma grabbed her arm. "No, Ruth, don't be in a hurry. The truth walks slowly, but it always arrives." Outside, the wind blew strong. A black bird landed on their roof and let out a long, loud cry. And far away, Uncle Peter sneezed and dropped his cup. He didn't know why, but something in the air had changed.
The sun was already going down when Ruth stepped out of the forest. She had a basket full of herbs on her head and a bow in her hand. A fresh antelope hung from her shoulder. The bush was quiet, too quiet. Even the birds had stopped singing. Ruth paused. She looked around. Her heart beat slowly, then faster. Then, boom! Two masked men jumped out from behind the tall grass. One carried a long stick, the other had a sharp knife. Ruth dropped her basket, jumped back, and grabbed her bow. "Who are you?" she shouted. But the men said nothing. They ran at her like wild dogs. Ruth bent low, rolled to the side, and shot her arrow. It missed, but made one of the men fall. The other one rushed at her with the knife. Ruth picked up a broken branch of a tree and blocked the strike. Then, with one strong kick, she sent him crashing into a tree. But the first man got up again. He swung his stick and hit her arm. She fell. Her eyes turned red, not from pain, but from anger. With all her strength, she rose and fought back. She kicked, punched, and swung her branch like a warrior. The men began to fall back. One tried to run. Ruth jumped on him and tore off his mask. She froze. It was Samba, a boy from her village. She once healed his sick mother with herbs and saved his baby sister from a fever. His face was full of fear and shame. "Ruth, please, I can explain," he cried. "I didn't want to do this. I was paid. I needed the money. I didn't know it was you." "Who sent you?" she shouted. But before he could speak again, the other man pulled him away, and they both disappeared into the forest. Ruth stood alone, her arm bleeding, her heart heavy. She walked home in silence. That night, Samba couldn't sleep. He sat outside his small hut shaking, his eyes full of guilt. He knew Ruth would tell everyone. He thought about running away. But before morning came, Uncle Peter entered his room. He wore a long white cloth and held a small black bag. "You opened your mouth to the wrong person," Peter said coldly.
Samba's eyes widened. He tried to speak, but Peter touched his forehead and whispered something in a strange language. Samba's body began to shake. His lips turned blue, and by morning, Samba was dead. They said it was sickness, but only one person knew the truth, and he was smiling in the dark.
One cold morning, Ruth stretched her arms and sat up on her mat. But something felt strange. As she folded her blanket, she felt something rough under her pillow. She reached in and froze. It was a long snakeskin, dry and cold. Her hands began to shake. She looked around the room. There was no snake, only silence. She ran outside to call Mama Dorothy, but before she could speak, she saw something worse. 2 dead birds were lying near the front door. Their wings spread, their eyes open, but their necks twisted like rope. Grandma came out slowly. She looked at the birds, then at the snakeskin in Ruth's hand. She said nothing, just sighed and whispered, "The spirits are talking." That night, Mama Dorothy had a dream. She stood beside a river. The water was clean at first, but soon it turned deep red like blood. Then a voice spoke. "The blood of the past has returned. The girl must choose the road of pain or the path of power." Grandma woke up sweating. She grabbed her staff and began to pray. But Ruth had other thoughts. She didn't want to be scared anymore. She wanted to move forward. She wanted to write her scholarship exam and leave the village. She wanted to become a doctor in the city and build a new life for Grandma. "I don't have time for fear," Ruth told herself. "I have dreams to chase." That same week, something happened. The chief's daughter, Sandra, fell sick. She couldn't eat, talk, or open her eyes. All the village healers tried, but failed. Then they called Ruth. Ruth crushed her herbs, boiled her roots, and placed a leaf on the girl's chest. Within hours, Sandra opened her eyes and spoke. The chief was happy. He gave Ruth a bag of yams and said, "May your name never be forgotten." But not everyone clapped. Some villagers gathered behind closed doors. "How can a girl survive a deadly attack and now wake a sick child?" one woman whispered. "Maybe she has powers from the dark forest," another said. "Maybe she's not even fully human," an old man added.
The sun was hot and the bush was quiet. Ruth and Mama Dorothy were in the cassava farm behind their house. It was harvest day. The air smelled like dust and leaves. Ruth bent down, held the cassava stem with both hands, and pulled. A big cassava came out from the ground. She smiled. "Grandma, this one is big," she said, laughing. Mama Dorothy chuckled and wiped sweat from her face. "You see, the land still blesses us." But just as Ruth turned to pull out another stem, the ground moved. Soft at first, then harder. The soil cracked like something was digging from beneath. Before Ruth could blink her eyes, a giant black snake shot out like lightning. "Ruth, look behind your back!" Grandma screamed. The snake opened its mouth and sank its fangs deep into Ruth's leg. Then, as quickly as it came, it disappeared back into the leaves. Ruth screamed and fell to the ground. Her basket rolled away. The cassava roots scattered. "Ruth, stay with me!" Mama Dorothy shouted, holding her tightly. Ruth's leg began to turn dark purple, and the veins on her skin moved like worms. Her breath became fast. Her eyes grew wide. Mama Dorothy didn't waste time. She broke leaves, crushed herbs, and rubbed black powder into the wound. She whispered prayers. She cried. She begged. But nothing worked. The bite was not normal. The poison was not from this world. It burned her skin. It climbed her veins. And Ruth's body began to shake. Still, her eyes stayed open. She held her grandma's hand and whispered, "If I don't make it, don't trust Peter. Grandma, he's evil." But her voice faded. Her head dropped slowly onto her grandma's lap. Her lips stopped moving. Mama Dorothy screamed to the sky. She held Ruth's face and called her name again and again. "Ruth, Ruth, wake up! Don't leave me!" But Ruth was gone. Her eyes did not close. They stared at the clouds above. And then a single tear rolled down her cheek. It dropped to the ground, softly like rain. The earth drank it in, and the wind blew gently around her body. Mama Dorothy sat there, holding her. Her cries echoed through the farm and reached the ears of birds, trees, and even the spirits. Somewhere in the village, a pot cracked by itself, and a shadow passed across Peter's compound, though no one saw it. The snake had done its work, but something deeper had just begun.
The next morning was dark. No rain, no thunder. Just a strange, heavy silence. In the village of Zaza, no cock crowed that day. Even the wind refused to blow. Ruth was gone. Women sat on the ground and cried, their wrappers tied high, their heads covered. Some beat their chests, others rolled in the dust. Children stood still, their faces wet with tears. They held hands and whispered, "Ruth is sleeping. When will she wake up?" Old men sat with bowed heads. Some held walking sticks. Some shook their heads slowly, again and again. Even the animals felt it. Inside the compound, Ruth's body was wrapped in a white cloth. Palm leaves were placed beside her. She looked peaceful. Mama Dorothy did not cry anymore. Her tears had dried. She sat beside the body, her eyes red but strong. "Let them come," she said. "Let them see what evil they've done." Then came Uncle Peter, wearing a clean white outfit and holding a bottle of oil. He cried loudly. He knelt beside Ruth and touched her cloth. "My sweet niece, the gods took you too soon," he said. But Mama Dorothy just stared at him. She saw through his fake tears. She saw the smile hiding behind his eyes. That evening, Ruth was buried beside the big mango tree near the farm. A carved stone was placed on her grave. As the villagers left one by one, the sky turned gray. The air felt thick, but Mama Dorothy remained. She knelt beside the grave, touched the soil, and whispered, "Ruth, my child, my sunshine, I swear with my soul, your killers will eat hot sand with their tongue. The earth will judge them." She stood up, placed her hand on the carved stone, and walked back home slowly, without looking back. The next morning, deep in the forest, a hunter named Akenna was checking his traps. As he walked past a thick bush, something moved. He stopped. And then he saw her. Ruth. She was standing between the trees. Her white wrapper was clean. Her face is filled with tears. She didn't speak. Akenna rubbed his eyes. He looked again, but she disappeared. He ran back to the village shaking. He said, "I saw Ruth. She was in the bush." People laughed. "Grief is making him see things," they said. But that night, Akenna could not sleep, because deep in his heart he knew. He didn't imagine it.
6 years after her death, Ruth's soul could not rest. She had been buried with pain and fire in her heart. But the ground could not hold her. Her spirit traveled far into a big city where no one knew her name. There, she started a new life. Not as a village girl, not as a ghost, but as a young doctor, a woman of skill, a woman of mystery. Her new name was still Ruth, but she didn't speak of her past. She was more beautiful, gentle, but powerful. She moved like the wind, spoke very softly, like a mermaid, and worked like fire. When a child is sick, she brings them back to life. When an elderly person is ill and couldn't walk, Ruth didn't blink. She fixed it in minutes. Where did she learn this? Nurses asked. Which school trained her? Patients whispered. But no one had answers. She came from nowhere, people said, like a light in the night. In her office, on her desk, sat a small brown calabash, always sealed. One nurse, Bola, once asked, "Doctor, what's inside?" Ruth smiled, but her eyes were deep, like they had seen things. "It's something from long ago," she said, "a reminder." But late at night, when the clinic was empty, the night guard peeped through the glass. Ruth was alone in her office. The calabash was open. Inside was a black snake fang, dry, sharp, and shiny like glass. She held it gently and whispered something. The guard stepped back, scared. He said, "There's something strange about her. Something not normal." But the next morning, Ruth smiled like always. She treated 10 patients before noon. She gave money to a beggar outside the gate. Everyone loved her. "She's an angel," the nurses whispered. But no one knew about her past. The innocent village girl who had died 6 years ago. Now she lives among humans to fulfill her destiny. And the snake fang? It was not just a memory. It was a key, a warning. And soon, it would strike again.
One quiet morning, far away in the village of Zaza, Ruth's grandma found a white envelope on her doorstep. No name, no stamp. Inside was a clean note and 300,000 naira cash. The note said, "Take this money and buy some food and medicine. With love." Grandma blinked. She looked left, she looked right. No footsteps, no bicycle sound. Just wind and silence. Next month it happened again, but this time a bag of rice and a box of herbs came with the envelope. "Who is doing this?" she whispered. The neighbors said it might be a kind stranger. One woman said, "Maybe it's a spirit from Ruth's grave." Another said, "Maybe Ruth's ghost is helping you." Grandma didn't reply, but at night she sat by the fire, eyes closed, holding Ruth's old scarf in her hand. "Ruth, is it you?" she whispered to the wind. "Is my sunshine still alive somewhere?" She felt it. She didn't speak it, but she knew something, someone was near. One Saturday afternoon, a tall woman with a scarf covering her face stood behind the big mango tree at the end of the village. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She just watched. In the compound, Grandma was spreading cassava on a tray. She sang Ruth's old song. The tall woman blinked hard. Her fingers trembled. She took one step forward. Then she stopped. Peter had just entered the compound. He wore his usual fake smile. He greeted Grandma and laughed loudly, but his eyes were sharp like a knife. The tall woman stepped back. Her heart beat fast. She knew that face. She knew the lies behind his voice. She turned away quickly and disappeared into the path behind the trees. Grandma looked up. Something felt different. The wind had changed. The air smelled like old memories. She closed her eyes. "Whoever you are," she whispered to the sky, "may your path never be dark. May your enemies fall like dry leaves." Back in the city that night, Ruth sat by her window. She held her calabash. She looked at the moon. She had seen Peter again, and she felt something rising inside her, a fire that had been sleeping for 6 years. It was not time yet, but soon Zaza would see her face again, not as a child, but as a storm.
One fateful morning, Peter woke up with sweat on his forehead. His chest felt tight, his throat dry like old sand. He tried to drink water, but blood sprayed out of his mouth instead. He fell to the floor, shaking. Then the mirror beside his bed began to move, but the room was quiet. Peter looked again. In the mirror, a shadow passed behind him. It had the shape of a woman with long braids, like Ruth's. "No, no, no!" he screamed, crawling back. His sons rushed in. "Papa, Papa, what happened?" He couldn't speak. He pointed at the mirror, but there was nothing there now. They lifted him, rushed him into their car, and drove straight to the city's best clinic. When they arrived at the Victory Clinic, nurses moved fast, pushing stretchers and writing reports. Peter was wheeled in quickly. He had no energy left to talk. Then the door opened. A young female doctor stepped in, wearing white coat and gloves. Her name tag was written, Dr. Ruth O. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was soft. But Peter's heart almost stopped. He recognized that face. He knew that voice. How could this be possible? He trembled with fear. Ruth was dead. He saw her buried with his own eyes. Now she was standing in front of him. Alive, taller, stronger, like a ghost in human skin. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. His body shook. "Sir," asked Ruth, pretending not to know him. "Relax. You're safe now." Peter's sons didn't notice anything strange. They were just happy the doctor was kind. She took his file, listened to his chest, checked his pulse. Then, slowly, she leaned in closer, very close, so only Peter could hear her, and she whispered, "Your poison didn't finish the job." Peter's eyes stretched wide. His mouth fell open. His hands gripped the bed. Tears formed in the corners of his eyes. Ruth stood straight and smiled lightly, then turned to his sons. "He'll be fine," she said, "but he needs rest." They thanked her, full of praise. Peter just lay there, frozen.
He could not sleep, not with the ghost of Ruth now walking in flesh. His heartbeat was fast. His head spun like a wheel. His mouth felt like it was filled with sand. He saw her everywhere. In the window, in the drip water, in the mirror. The next morning, nurses rushed into his room. Peter was screaming, "I did it! I did it!" He was pulling his hair, tearing at his hospital clothes. "Stop him!" the nurse shouted. But Peter wouldn't stop. His two sons stood by the door, confused and scared. Doctors, guards, and patients came close to watch. Peter pointed to the ceiling and cried, "She came back for me! Ruth came back!" One doctor said, "Sir, calm down." Peter shouted louder like thunder, "I killed her parents! I sent the snake! I forged the papers! I wanted the land! I wanted everything!" His voice broke. His eyes turned red. He began to cry like a baby. "Ruth, please, forgive me." The room went silent. All eyes turned to the nurse recording everything on her phone. The truth was out. Peter shook one last time.
Foam spilled from his mouth. His body went cold and still. Peter was dead. That same night, back in the village, the giant black snake that bit Ruth slithered through Peter's room. It curled into a circle, lifted its head, then dropped and died. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, because the next part, it will leave you speechless.